Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's pre-market life analysis. Okay, before we get started, again apologies for the delayed start. I was having some technical issues, so let's just go ahead and get started. Okay, so as per usual, disclaimer first. IC Markets Global, or a risk warning rather. Trading Forex and CFDs carries a high level of risks to your capital, and you should only trade with money you can afford to lose. Trading Forex and CFDs may not be suitable for all investors, so please ensure that you fully understand the risk involved and seek independent advice if necessary. Please read and ensure that you fully understand our risk disclosure. So here's our agenda for today. We'll look at FX first, followed by commodities, crypto, and indices. I can see we have a couple of requests in the chat already, so we'll just go through those for today. Okay, so I'm your host. I'm Melanie, and I'm an investment analyst from Rocket, who are finalist for Best FX and Equity Research in the years 2019 to 2021, specializing in technical analysis with a focus on Fibonacci retracements, extensions, and projections. Okay. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. Let me pull out my charts. Okay, we'll start off with the majors first. So we have a couple of requests for Euro, Pound, and Aussie. So let's go ahead and get started on those. Let me just pull up my charts. Okay. Actually, let's start off with DXY first. Okay. Let me know if you guys can't see my charts, but should be alright, I think. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, um, okay, I'd like to start off by looking at the higher time frames first, so that we get an idea of the direction that prices are headed towards. Okay, so I'm going to start off with on our weekly time frame. You can kind of see prices are fluctuating. On our daily time frame, you can see prices kind of moving in this downtrend. Okay, so we normally will follow the direction of price, unless there are very specific and obvious reasons why you wouldn't. Okay, let's analyze this on our daily time frame. So I'm gonna go in with firstly, let's see if we have any trend channels or trend lines. Okay, no. So I'll go in with my support and resistance levels instead. So okay, over here, this is our pivot. first resistance, and first support. Okay. Okay, now let's go in with our Fibonacci levels. Okay, my 78.6 lines up nicely with my first support. I'm going to keep that. Looking at our retracements. $61.8 lines up with our pivot. So I'll just keep that. Okay, I think that's all the levels that we have. Okay, wait. Let's see. Okay, 61.8 lines up nicely with our first resistance. Okay, let's take a look at some indicators to see if they support our analysis. So I'd like to start off by looking at Ishimoku and MACD because at one glance you can see exactly what the signals are. Okay, so price is moving below the cloud, so it is giving us a bearish signal. MACD is also giving us a bearish signal here, so they both support our analysis. So we are expecting it to continue to drop, but of course it depends on our fundamentals as well. Mm, yeah, we might see it reverse off of this area here. So I'll place an intermediate support here as well, since price has tested this level many times in the past. Okay, so just want to highlight this level. So one way of doing it is to place this level as your partial profit, and your take profit here at the first support, so that even if price reverses off of our support, off of this intermediate support, you still walk away with some profits there and protects your position as well. Okay, so that's DXY. Now we'll look at Aussie dollar. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, looks like prices have been dropping. Even if we look at recent times, from July, looks like prices have been dropping. Okay, so again, we want to follow the general trend, which is kind of downtrend here. I don't think we have any trend lines um or trend channels, so I'm just gonna go straight into adding our support and resistance levels. So this is my pivot. First resistance up here, and my first support down here. Okay, my 61.8 lines up. And I'm gonna keep the 78.6 as well. Okay, so because it is near to our first support. Because for Fibonacci, we aren't really looking for it doesn't have to line up exactly because we're looking more so for confluence areas instead of specific levels. So retracement 23.6 lines up. Um, so even though this 50% retracement lines up nicely with our first resistance, we can't use it since price has already broken out of it recently. Instead, I'm gonna keep the the 78.6 here. Okay, in line with our pivot. So this area does have a confluence area here. Okay, just to point out, and so you might see some reversal here, but since the downward momentum is still pretty strong, so we are expecting it to continue in a downward towards our first support. Looking at some indicators, again, I'm going to start off with Ichimoku and MACD. Okay, you can see price moving below the cloud, so it is giving us a bearish signal. MACD is also giving us a bearish momentum here. Okay, if we want to look at some other indicators as well, you can see on our Bollinger Band, prices are pushing below the lower band, so it's also giving us a bearish signal. Any other indicators that you want me to go through? These are normally the few that I use, along with some moving averages to compare RSI or stochastic as well. Okay, so that's Aussie dollar. Next, let's look at pound dollar. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, we see prices kind of moving in this slightly uptrend, with prices recently dropping slightly. Okay, now on our daily time frame, we kind of have prices moving in this ascending trend channel. Okay, so in order for there to be a valid trend channel, you basically need a couple of factors. Firstly, where's my brush? Okay, it just has to touch the top twice and the bottom of your channel twice as well, at least twice. Okay, so we have prices moving in this ascending trend channel. So I'm gonna go in with a buy, okay, just to follow the trend. So here is our pivot and our first support over here. Okay, my 161.8 lines up with our first resistance. Okay, 78.6 also lines up with our first resistance. Mm, 23.6 retracement lines up with our pivot. Okay. I'm just going to check one more retracement. Okay, my 61.8 lines up with my first support. So we'll keep that as well. Okay, so since prices are moving in this uptrend, we're gonna continue following the trend. Ichimoku MACD prices are moving above the cloud, so it does support our analysis. MACD on the other hand is giving us a bit of a bearish momentum, so I'm gonna move that since it doesn't support our analysis. So we can pull out some other indicators to use as well. Okay, let's look at our moving averages and compare them. Okay, so I like to compare our EMA and SMA. Currently prices are still moving with below the moving averages, so it doesn't support our analysis. So I'll move them now. If we look at our um, Bollinger Bands, RSI, okay, Bollinger Bands isn't really telling us much here. Mm, okay, both of these aren't telling us much. Okay, so we might see prices continue to move upwards, or we might see kind of a reversal for price to reverse off of the ascending trend channel here. Okay, that's for pound dollar. Next, we'll look at euro dollar and then gold. Okay, yep, let's go ahead and look at euro dollar. So on our weekly time frame, we kind of see prices fluctuating again, but recently it looks like prices have been moving in an uptrend. On our daily time frame, we also see prices moving in an uptrend recently, so we'll follow the direction of the trend as well. Okay, this is our pivot, first resistance, maybe up here. Okay, and first support over here. Okay, and that's just an intermediate level. I might remove it later depending on the number of Fibonacci levels we can get to see how significant this level is. So basically, I highlighted this level since it has multiple levels of swing highs that line up with it. Okay, so for this, you can kind of see prices are kind of moving sideways, um, with prices kind of fluctuating here. So let's see if prices continue moving upwards. For now, we'll still expect it to continue upwards since there is an uptrend over here. Um, okay, with prices moving in this ascending trend line. For a valid trend line, just to recap, you need 3 touches on the trend line here, like this. Okay. Okay, now let's get into our Fibonacci levels. I'm going to start off with a projection. Okay, you can see my 100% lines out nicely with my intermediate level. Okay, if we take a retracement from this swing high, okay, the 78.6 is pretty close to our first resistance. Again, it doesn't have to line up exactly, just as long as it's kind of close. That's good enough. Okay, looking at another projection, 61.8 lines up nicely with our intermediate, 78.6 also lines up with our first resistance. So I'll just keep those two. Mm, I think maybe just one more retracement here. Okay, my 61.8 lines up with our first support. Okay, I think that's all the levels for now. Let's look at our indicators. So we are going in for a buy here to follow the uptrend. You can see prices moving above the cloud, so it's giving us a bullish signal, so it does support our analysis. MACD, on the other hand, is giving us a bit of a bearish signal here. Okay, so let's look at some other indicators. Okay, prices are moving above both of the indicators, so it suggests that this is a bullish signal. Okay, maybe if we look at Bollinger Bands, can see our price moving towards the upper band, but it hasn't hit yet, so I'm not gonna consider this yet. I'll keep that in view. Let's look at RSI. Okay, we have prices moving in this ascending trend line on our RSI as well. Okay, and that's for euro dollar. So again, even though it is kind of moving sideways, we'll follow the general trend, which is from this ascending trend line, prices are moving in an upwards. So we would go in for a buy towards our maybe a partial profit again towards our intermediate level before going in towards our first resistance. Just in case price reverses off of the intermediate level. Since it is aligned with a 61.8, there are also a couple of swing highs that are in line with that level. So just as a risk management strategy, you could just use that as a intermediate or partial profit. Okay, lastly we'll look at gold, and someone asked if we could look at some fundamentals as well. So yeah, I'll pull out my economic calendar in a bit and we can go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, prices are obviously moving in an uptrend. Daily time frame as well. Okay, so in fact, okay, the level over here, this is our pivot. Actually, it's slightly higher. Okay, I'll just take it from here. Okay, and I'm gonna use a Fibonacci extension as well as a projection for our resistance levels. Okay. Okay, you can see my 161 and my 127 line up with the 78 and the 100%. Okay, so this is my first resistance. This might be I'll just highlight this level here just to take note of it. Um, for first support, we'll just place it at the swing low here. Okay, now going in with our Fibonacci levels. My 23.6 lines up with my first support. Mm, okay, my 61.8 retracement also lines up with my first support. Okay, I think that's all the levels we have here. Okay, now let's look at some indicators. Okay, price is moving above the cloud, so it is giving us a bullish signal. MACD is also giving us a bullish signal. Look at Bollinger Bands maybe. Okay, prices you can see are pushing above the upper band of our Bollinger Band, so it is giving us a bullish signal as well. Okay, are there any other requests before I pull out our economic calendar? Then we can look at this week's fundamentals. Okay, if not, let's just quickly go through this. So this is just Forex Factory, and it's the one that we prefer to use, but it's up to you whichever um, economic calendar you're more comfortable using. So basically, we click on the date and it'll come up with a calendar. I'm going to select this week. Okay, you can see I have it filtered to only focus on our orange and red icon events. These represent your low impact, or rather your medium impact and your high impact events. But you can also look at your low impact, represented by this yellow icon, and any non-economic events as well. So if we apply filter, you can see that there are a lot more holidays to consider, a lot more events as well, low impact events. So that's why we normally like to streamline it and just focus on the medium to high impact events. You can also filter out any event types that you're looking at specifically. I just like to look at all of them, and the currencies that you're trading as well. You could also um, filter any of them out. Okay, so for this week, Monday we have final services PMI. Tuesday we have ISM services PMI, Australia cash rate, RBA monetary policy statement. This is UK construction PMI as well. On Wednesday, we have New Zealand's employment data. Thursday, Canadian PMI, US 10-year bond auction, Australia's RBA Bollocks speaks, um, New Zealand inflation expectations, US unemployment claims, and on Friday, US 30-year bond auction, China's CPI and PPI, Canadian employment change as well. Okay, so you can take a look at the forecasted values, previous values. Once the economic data is released, it'll show up in the actual value as well. Okay. Are there any other questions? Any other requests? Yeah, okay, so we have a request on Fibonacci. Let me just pull up our website. So I do try to show you guys the shapes that we're using normally. So like this would be a Nike tick, for example. You know this 161, 127. This is our Nike tick. Or like this. If it's inverted, it'll look like that. Okay, or we call it a Fibonacci extension. If we're looking at projections, we will look for a kind of this lightning bolt shape. Okay, and we'll see where price is projected towards. You can see here 71 and 100. Okay, so I don't really get into it because we don't really have time during these sessions, but if you want to, I can get more in depth. Basically, you can take a look at the forexarmy.com. It's just this trading guide here. Yeah, feel free to watch this Fibonacci retracements extensions videos. But we also have a 4-part Fibonacci series, webinar series on how to use Fibonacci with a lot of examples, and we get really in depth, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, feel free to check this out. We have some guides or guidelines on what to look out for. So to always trade on a clear market structure. And if on a time frame, you see it's not really that clear, you can always look at it from a different time frame and analyze on another time frame instead. That gives you a clearer market structure. Okay, so yeah, specific levels for each type of Fibonacci technique we get through in depth here as well. I'm not gonna spend too long on that. And I think we have some examples as well, some GIFs. But the most important, I think, would be confluence, being able to identify any confluence areas. So you can see here, we have three levels lining up. This is a confluence area. We expect price to bounce off of this confluence area. The reason being, price tends to attract, or rather, these confluence areas tend to attract price, but price might not be able to pass through them. Okay, so like you can see here as well, we have a bunch of levels lining up, but price isn't able to break out of it, as you can see here. Okay, so we have some trade management as well. So always place your stop loss beyond, take profit before any confluence areas, and this is an example of what we mean. Okay, so feel free to explore this page on your own. It's just the forexarmy.com, and the trading guides is just this one. So yeah, if there are no other questions, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you guys found the session useful, and I'll see you guys again next week. Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Bye.